Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Cliff Dive, and I'm going to be sipping on some coffee. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting, and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are Mars Black, Titanium White, Ultramarine Blue, Fluorescent Orange, and Chrome Yellow. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'll use for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. Excuse me. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, a number 6 round synthetic brush, and a number 1 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up too if you like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and pencil and paper towel, and all the good stuff is in there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our landscape. I'm going to be using my pencil. I'm going to give you a couple of markers, and we'll just connect those markers, and by the time we're done we'll have a big huge rock ledge and an off in the distance piece of land. You can certainly modify yours and make it look whatever way you want. You could even turn the canvas in a horizontal way to give it a little bit more length if you want to, so feel free to have fun with it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make myself a couple of markers on the right hand side of my canvas. I'm going to come down, I would say about 3 inches from the top, make myself a little bit of a marker. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to come up about 3 to 3.5 inches, somewhere in through here, give myself another marker. This will represent the top and the bottom of that right ledge. I want there to be an area that kind of really juts out at the farthest point for the ledge, so it gives our jumper a place to jump off of. So I'm going to come down from here, I would say about 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to come over to the left. If this is about center in my canvas, I'm a little bit shy of that center point, so I'm a little bit to the right of the center. Then I'm going to connect these two with just kind of almost like a flat ledge at the top, and then just kind of bring this down in through here. Now what I'm going to do from here to here is I'm going to give myself a progressively jagged rock that gets a little bit smaller as it comes down towards the bottom. But so I don't make it too skinny, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this line out, I would say maybe about 4 inches or so. So this will be short of the width of this one by a couple of inches. Now what I can do is I can just kind of make myself a real kind of jagged type of rock coming down in through here. You can certainly have yours looking different than mine. I like to have a couple of like pieces just kind of poking out every now and again to give it, you know, some nice dimension to it. And then maybe down at the bottom we'll have this part kick back out a little bit in through there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a piece of land off in the distance. So I'm going to come up on the left hand side about 1/4 of the way up my canvas. So to know where that is, if you visually pick about your halfway point up and down, you'll go about halfway between that and the bottom of the canvas. So somewhere in this vicinity, and this should also be a little bit higher than here. So whatever you do here, what I'm going to do is measure it with my pencil, or you can measure it with some brush or anything. Come over to your rock's edge and make yourself a mark at the same spot. You can connect those two with a pretty straight line. Doesn't have to be perfect, but something close will work. And then I'm just going to do an uneven landscape above it. I'm going to come up from here about 2.5 inches in through there and do the same thing on the left hand side. And then I'm just going to connect these with a fun roly-poly kind of landscape. It can have hills and mountains. I'm going to have it pretty low down in through this area, and then it just kind of goes up a little bit on the sides. And I'm just giving it a nice carefree type of profile. You can certainly have yours doing whatever it is that you want. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my landscape. Maybe this is going to come down a little bit more like this. Give this a little bit more information. And if you want to erase anything, feel free to do so. And then we're going to use our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your landscape all nice and figured out here, and make any modifications that you want, like I'm doing, you can put your pencil away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the base coat for our sky, or our sky. We'll be putting our sun and little clouds on later, so that's why I'm going to call it the base coat. And also the base coat for our water, because we'll be doing reflections and sparkles and stuff later, but we'll just do the base coat right now. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are blue, orange, yellow, white, and black. So all my colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a really kind of neutral bluish lavender color to start at the sky with up at the top. I'll also use that in my water. I really want this to look like a nice kind of moody sunset type of sky. And when I look at a lot of sunsets, I can still kind of detect a little bit of that blue up at the top of the sky. So that's kind of what I'm going for. So I've already pre-mixed a little bit of my bluish lavendery kind of color that I'm looking for, so you can see where I'm going. I'll show you how I got there. So I'm using my blue, my ultramarine blue, some of my fluorescent orange, a little bit of white, and just a tiny dot of black. So the white and the black is really going to add like a grayish color to it. The purple and the orange is going to make it, or the blue and the orange is going to make it like a purpley tone, and then we're adding a little bit of gray to it. So then I just start spinning it around, and as I'm spinning it around, I can see if I need to add more blue, which I in fact need to add a little bit more blue into this equation. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit more blue. There we go. We're getting it into the vicinity now. And then once you feel like you've got the right tone in here, I think I want a little bit more white in it so it's a little bit softer. Yeah, there we go. Once you've got that color, what we're going to do is we're going to start at the top of the sky. So I'm just making sure I've got it kind of squished nicely into my brush here. So I'm going to start at the top of my sky. What I'm in essence going to do is have the blue fade into some orange and like soft sunsetty colors, and then fade down towards the bottom. So I'm going to be using mostly like a left to right crisscross type of brush stroke. What this allows me to do is kind of get these colors to blend in with one another on the fly. I can also utilize it right up near the edge of my cliff, so that way I have these nice soft edges. You'll notice as I do this, I will be bumping into my cliff's edge, so that way it will look like the sky goes behind it as opposed to us painting around it. So now that I've got that on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some of my orange and white without washing my brush. So I pick up a little bit of orange and white without washing my brush. I'm going to save the yellow for later, because the yellow, if I have too much blue on my brush, will turn very green on me. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going for a nice pinky type of look right now, just to get these colors to blend in with each other. Now I'm just going to pick up more of my orange color, and that's going to get the nice rich vibrant type of tones in through the sky. You might find that you want to do little circles. Maybe you want to do more than one layer in your sky, which I might end up doing more than one layer, but right now I'm just kind of getting these colors on here. I'm still now just picking up some orange and white, just getting the sky to go nice and softly as it's coming down. And what's also happening is that bluish color is working its way off of my brush. So when I'm ready to start using that yellow in the sky, it will not turn green on me. And if it does a little bit, that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up orange, yellow, and white all on my brush at the same time, about equal parts. And this is where you'll start to see those tones in the sky going a little bit more richer and having that more vibrant kind of tone to them. Just overlapping my colors as if these are maybe little clouds going by. Again, overlapping the edge of my my cliff, so that way it ends up looking like that sky is going behind it and not around it. And then I'm just kind of coming down to the bottom. I'm not going to pick up any more of that blue, just picking up my orange, yellow, and white on my brush and just getting this sunset colors to just really come down and get nice and vibrant down the bottom. I think I'm going to use a little bit more orange on my brush so I can get some richer, deeper orange tones as I'm starting to meet this land line in through here. And you might find you want yours softer or lighter or brighter, or maybe you want to incorporate reds into there. You can really make this into whatever you want. It's your sunset. You can really, you know, have fun with the brightness or the softness of it, make it into something that's visually appealing to you. And then I'm just going to transition right into the water. So once I've got my sky done, and again, you might find that you want to do more than one layer on it. I might wait for it to dry and come back and do a second layer on it just to make sure that I've got all of my colors where I want, but this is good for now. So I'm going to just transition right into the water. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to start picking up the same orange, yellow, and white to start the top of my water in through here. I'm going to be using a left to right brush stroke so I can have almost like a ripply type of look to it. And then as I work my way down towards the bottom of the water, I'll start incorporating some of that bluish color into it. So again, you can certainly use more orange or more yellow. This way you've got multiple tones. If you just kind of keep alternating those colors, you can get, you know, some more yellow areas, some more orange areas. Right now I'm going to start picking up my orange and some of my blue, my pre-mixed blue on my brush, and you'll see it getting nice and dark as it goes down towards the bottom of the water's edge. I don't necessarily want it to go black. We're going to be, or dark, dark, dark. We're going to be adding some other information down at the bottom of the water, but right now just trying to get it to go a little bit darker as it comes down towards the bottom of the canvas. And then once we've got this done, we will be utilizing the same brush for the next step. So I'm just doing these long sweeping motions at this point down in the water so I can get it all covered in. And again, if you want to do a second coat on it, feel free to do so. Just let it dry, and then you can do a second coat on top of the first one in a similar manner. And then you can wash and dry this brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting in the base coat for our land and our cliff. I'm going to use my large brush. I'm going to use black paint. So there's really nothing fancy about this. I'm just going to kind of bring it all the way to my sky, making sure that I don't have any unpainted area between my sky and my cliff or my land. So that's the only tricky part. Black is really good at covering well, so you don't need to worry about the paint strokes. You can really use any kind of paint stroke that you want. You can also paint along the edges of your canvas if you want to carry that color along the edge and paint the sides of your canvas. That makes it look nice and professional. But I'm just going to bring this black all the way to the edge. If you wanted to, as you are coming towards the edge of your cliff or your land, if you wanted to have more control over your brush, and if the bristle brush was a little bit too big or wasn't providing you with the type of edging you want, you could certainly switch to your medium brush, or just a smaller brush will work. And you can morph your lines into whatever you want. That little exterior pencil line that we made, mine tends to change a little bit based on making sure I cover up all the paint. I want to make sure I cover up all the unpainted areas from my sky, because again, it's more important to me to bring that paint all the way to a fully painted area in the sky than it is to stay true to my original pencil mark, because this is just an organic shape. So if we want to change that at all, that's totally fine. I just am more concerned about making sure that I have the canvas fully painted. So make sure that I do that. And then the land is going to be the same thing. I'm going to do it pretty straight across at the bottom, but this is land. So if it is not totally straight at the bottom, it's okay, because land doesn't have to be straight across. If it was a horizon off in the ocean or something, with the sea or the ocean just meeting the sky, then you'd want to have it nice and straight across. But because this is a piece of land, this bottom line does not have to be super duper straight. So you can see mine kind of morphed and wiggled along the way anyways. And we're going to have little reflections too. And then as I go up towards the top, this can be a clean line like the cliff, or you can make it look like these are little trees, so you can have little ruffled edges along the side that touches your sky, so you can have it look like hills or trees, whatever kind of profile that you want to give to this land mass is totally fine. I just like to have mine having different types of areas just kind of popping up and making it look nice and organic. And then once you've got this done, we are going to be utilizing our pencil for the next step. So you can put this large brush away, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline of our cliff diver. So I'm going to be using my pencil. I'm going to give you a couple of markers. We'll connect those markers. We're going to go for a nice basic shape for this person. You can certainly modify it to look like more like a female with long hair, or you can put longer shorts, or you can really put, you know, the legs spread farther apart, like it's kind of in an awkward position. You can really just have some fun with this. But I'm going to give you just a nice generic start to it, and if you want to modify it, feel free to do so. So I'm going to have mine, if this was the edge that he was jumping off of, I'm going to have my body right about here. And depending on how close or far away you want this person to look, if you put it really small, it'll look farther away. If you put it really bigger, it'll look closer. So you can certainly play with that as well. I'm going to have mine, if this is the little point to my cliff, I'm going to come out from that maybe about an inch, inch and a half, and then down about an inch. This is going to be the back of the feet, so to speak. And then I'm going to come diagonally from here to right about here. So this is maybe about 3.5 inches down in a diagonal way. And if this, just to give you kind of a pointer as to where this marker is, if we find the center of our canvas left to right and up and down, the center of my canvas is right about here. So I'm about maybe 3 inches, 2.5 inches up from that, and over about 2 inches. So something like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these two with an arcing line. So I've got my end in through here, and then I'm just going to kind of connect them with this arcing line. So this is going to represent just the center part of the body, and we'll add all of the necessary pieces on top of that. So I'm going to try and figure out where my waist is, and usually I have my waist about 1/3 of the way between the toe and the head. So I'm going to put my waist somewhere in here. So that helps me to identify like where I want the rear end to be and how the back arches and things of that nature. So if this is going to be my waist, I'm going to have my torso is going to stop right about in through here. So that means this is going to be my head, this will be my torso, and these will be my legs. So for my head, I'm just going to give it an oval type of a shape in through here. He's going to be looking down, so I need to give him a little bit of a chin like that, and maybe a little tiny nose, and if you want a little forehead as well. This is going to be all silhouetted, so you don't really need to do much detail on it. For the torso part, this is going to be the back of the shoulder, this is going to be kind of his back in through there, and then this will be his chest area in through here. I've got to have a couple of arms that are going to come out from these shoulders, and they're really flying kind of high in the air and maybe a little crooked. So I'm just going to kind of give myself a line, and then maybe just give myself a couple of little areas where I'm going to want the hand to be in through there, and then I'm going to have another one coming out right in through here. And again, this is something that you'll be able to modify once you've got it on here. If you feel like you need to do any little adjusting, feel free to do so. So this is going to be my foot in through here. So I'm going to have just a little bit of a toe kind of popping out in through here, and then his little heel in through here. I don't need much for my foot, and you don't want to make it too long, just a little kind of area shorter than your head would work. Then I'm going to kind of figure out where I want maybe the bottom of my shorts to go. So if this is maybe where the knee would go, maybe I'll have the bottom of my shorts somewhere in this vicinity. And then I just need to put a little bit of the end of the shorts, and then leading up towards the rear end, which leads into the back. And then this is going to be the front part of the shorts. So this will just kind of go into where the shirt is in the front area. And of course, they can be modified as well. And then this is just going to be the leg portion. So I've got to have a thigh coming out here. It's going to kind of meet the knee, or maybe the knee's right around in through here, and then the shin part meets the foot. Back here, I've got my calf area in through here, and then this is going to meet my thigh area, which goes into my shorts. And then I would just sit and fiddle with it. Maybe I need to get my head a little bit further back away to see if I need to do any adjusting. And if I do, I'll make my adjustments with my pencil, which is a great tool to use for this. And then if we will be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your pencil away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our person. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are black, white, yellow, and orange. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with just black paint. And what I like to do when I'm doing small areas like this is I will take my brush, add a tiny bit of water to it, and thin out. I'm going to start with black paint. I'm going to thin it out with a little bit of water, so it's kind of like an ink consistency. It allows me to have a lot of control with my brush. I can get my brush nice and pointy, and I can have some nice clean lines when I do it that way. So once I've got a little bit of watered down black on my brush, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow my outline that I created with my pencil mark. And if you need to make any modifications as you're coloring this in, feel free to do so. You can also, once you've got it painted in, if you need to make more, oops, I just got a little black in the sky. if you need to make modifications after that, you can certainly do so. But right now I'm just kind of going up to my pencil, the edge of my pencil, getting myself a nice silhouetted appearance to this person. And if you find that some of the pencil marks that you have, you actually don't want to paint all the way up to, just leave them, and then when your paint dries you can come back and erase those exterior pencil marks if there's any extra ones that ended up being visible that you don't really want. So I'm going to just kind of give him his little shorts in through here, putting my head back so I can see what I want to do here. I might bring his back in a little bit more of an arcing way. But again, just kind of playing with it as I'm painting it in, seeing if I want to make any little last minute adjustments to it. I think I have too much paint on my brush, so I'm just changing or making sure that that's not too much. And then I'm just, of course, going to go up into the head. I really want that back to look like it's nice and arcing, so just making sure I have enough of that visible. And then you can even accentuate the arc of the back by giving maybe a little bit more arc on that belly area or the chest area. That helps to accentuate that arc of the back. And then what I'm going to do is bring it all the way to the face. And again, I know that the arms will be kind of covering this area where those shoulders are, so I'm really not going to do a whole heck of a lot for the shape of here. I'm not terribly concerned about it being, again, in that perfect realm. I'm going to be doing little highlights to the face and stuff too, but right now just kind of want to give it a little bit of a natural shape here. So he's got a little chin, bring in maybe a little forehead, maybe a little bit of a nose, but again, I'm not doing much. Sometimes when you do these silhouettes, less is more. You can always build them a little bit bigger if you need to. It's tough to take away if you've made them, you know, too accentuated, maybe a little bit bigger on the head and through there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add my arms coming up in through here. I'm going to try and get the little hands to look like they're open. But first I'm just getting these little slender lines as they get a little bit thicker as they're reaching the shoulder. And I just reload my brush, make sure that it's nice and pointy as I go in for these fingers. And you might want to use, you know, a smaller detail brush if you're having difficulties with these tiny little details. But I mean, it's a little tiny silhouette, so we really don't need much. I'm just trying to get maybe a couple of the fingers popping out, the thumbs down at the bottom, maybe a couple of the fingers are splayed out, like he's really, you know, reaching for the sky as he's diving into this beautiful sunsetted water. And then once I've got the black silhouette on here, what I'm going to do is just put a couple of strategic highlights. So I'm going to wash and dry my little brush, and I'm going to add some orange, yellow, and white on my brush at the same time. So a touch of orange, a touch of yellow, and a touch of white. What I'm really doing is looking to just have a little bit of a highlight from what's going to be the setting sun on this bottom side of his body. So I've got a little bit of those three colors, and I'm really just going to add these little bits of streaks of highlights throughout this bottom side, maybe a little bit on his pants and through here, just to give that glow of the setting sun. So you can even utilize this to give little information, like maybe he's got a belt on or where those pants end. If you can't see it, you probably need more contrast, so you might need a little bit more white on your brush. Like I just put a little bit more white so I can have maybe his shirt's catching a little bit more, or maybe he's not wearing a shirt, who knows what he's wearing. So something like that. I think I want a little more of this lightness on his pants too. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit on that face. So it looks like I'm using the majority of white, maybe a touch of the orange and yellow. The white seems to be really popping out well for me. But that orange and yellow will add a little bit of a glow. I'm going to put a tiny bit of glow on his cheek with these colors, so a little orange, yellow, and white. And again, not much. I just want to give the illusion that his face, or you know, his clothing is being lit up by the light from the sun going down. Maybe a touch of orange in through here, and then I would just kind of keep playing. And if you do any area where you're like, oh, that's just too much, then just bring back the black. Like I just brought a little bit of black back on my brush just so I can have that information evident. And then yellow, orange, and white if I want a little tiny bit on these arms. So just wherever it's kind of facing the sun, you can add a little tiny bit, and just an itty bitty line is going to really help to sell the story that he's being lit up by that light below. And then once you've got this done, we'll use the same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our sun. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to be using white, yellow, orange, and my sky blue that I created. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white. You could really have your sun as big or as small as you want. It's going to be totally up to you. It could be as bright or as, you know, soft as you want it. I'm going to have mine a little bit to the left of the center of my canvas, just sinking down behind this landscape. So if this is about center of my canvas, going a little bit to the left of that. I'm going to provide myself with, I would say, almost half of a circle in through here with just white paint is where I'm starting. And I'm bringing it right to the edge of my land. And I'm not using a ton of paint because I want to be able to kind of give myself these soft edges to this area. So I brought it all the way out to the edge, and then I just kind of allow my brush to lightly paint that exterior edge so it becomes nice and soft, and just making sure I have a nice good coverage on the inside that is not too thick, and it'll dry nice and kind of quickly for me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm not going to wash it, just wipe it off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow paint, and I'm going to give myself a glow around my sun. So this is going to allow this sun to really pop out on the canvas. So I just have that yellow. I do have a little remnants of white on my brush as well. So that will allow that yellow to have a little bit more substance to it and be a little bit less translucent. But I'm going to pick up a little bit more yellow right now and get the edges. I'm going to paint over the edge of my sun and allow that yellow to kind of gently blend into the center of the sun itself, to give it that real bright glow from the center, and it kind of dissipates out into the yellow. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more white just to amp up the center of that sun. So really what I'm doing is my goal is to have the center of the sun nice and white and have it fade out into this brilliant yellow in order to make it really look like it's sinking down into in behind the earth. And then what I can do is I can pick up a little bit of my orange. The orange will help to make the exterior of the sun pop out. The higher the contrast is on the color that's next to the sun, the more it will pop out. So you might want yours to be very dark with this orange around it, or you can utilize some of your sky color, which you'll see. I'm going to do that in a minute by adding some little drifting clouds by the sun, but these darker colors right next to the sun will help it pop out as well. I'm just making mine so it's nice and natural as it's fading into that bright, brilliant part of the sun. And once I've got that on there, now I just kind of play with maybe some clouds coming by. I just picked up a little bit more of the orange. I'll just kind of put these little drifting clouds coming down in through here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that blue from the top, the sky blue that we created. This allows it to look like there's nice drifting clouds right down by that horizon. So you can really I love doing these little clouds down by the sun. It just provides so much more atmospheric dimension to it. Right now, without washing my brush, I picked up a little bit of orange and white just to soften some of these edges of these drifting clouds. And again, have fun with this type of step, because you can really add a lot to the painting by just putting in place these, you know, pieces of nature that are so organic and just happen, and you know, we don't even really give it much thought when we're looking at a landscape, but when you go to paint it, if you can incorporate these little tiny bits of information, it just makes it feel more natural. It makes it feel like Mother Nature has had something to do with this composition, and we just kind of roll with her punches sometimes when we want to. And then we're going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your sun and its surrounding atmosphere all nice and finished, you can put this small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are going to put the highlights on our cliff and our land. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. You could certainly use your large brush too to do this if you'd like to, but I think I'll have the most control with my medium brush. What I'm in essence doing is I want to give these two pieces their texture and their information with where they bump out and stuff by utilizing the light from the sun to do so. So that's going to be our light source, and I'm going to have some glowing edges along the side of my cliff, and then I'll have some glowing edges on this land in through here. So I'm going to be using orange, yellow, white, and if I need to, maybe a little bit of black too, just to make sure that the colors are talking to each other properly. But I'm going to start with this back area first. When I'm doing this, I'm not really concerned about what happens at where it meets the water, because we're going to be doing another step to our water. But what I'm going to start with is a little bit of orange on my brush, and I'm going to just kind of give myself a little bit of a roadmap with my orange. I know that the orange is going to be really see-through, but it's going to allow me to kind of plan out where I want some peaks and valleys within my land. So I can really take anywhere that I want and put a little bit of a highlight on the side that faces the sun. So as I go through this, if I have a little bit of a hillside in through here, I can bring down this light color on the side where that is, and it's going to tell the story of this area being lit up by the sun. My roadmap that I'm giving myself right now, I will enhance with some yellow and white in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of giving myself the information as to where I want my peaks and my valleys to go. And then once I've got this established, and again, the primary area would be right here where the sun is, but if you want to add little bits elsewhere, that is totally fine. Like I'll add a little bit on here. I know that this orange is going to be see-through and it'll get much darker as it dries, so I can utilize it just to give myself a little bit of information on these side hills as well. Now that I got that in there, I'm going to pick up a touch of yellow and white without washing my brush and give myself a couple of extra little peaks and information throughout these throughout the areas that I've already designated as the peaks of the hills. But I'm not going to paint as much area as I did with the orange, because this is going to you want the concentrated highlights to have a smaller area than the full color that you put on. So this is just like the little tips that are going to be catching the sun's light the most. And of course you can give it more orange if you want to. You can really play with it as much as you want, but having that center area the lightest is going to make for the most believable representation of where that sun is casting its light onto the land. And then I'll do the same thing for the mountain. So that's looking pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit more lightness right as it's catching here and in through here. I think this is going to be just a little hit. There we go. That looks good. So then on this side, same thing. I'm going to have some areas that are going to be very, very light and some that are going to just kind of go off in the distance and be darker. So again, I'm going to start with orange. So this is going to tell me, all right, I definitely want the viewer to see this edge of the cliff. I think I'm going to wash my brush. I think I had a little bit too much white on there. I washed my brush so I can start with some clean orange. So I'm going to have the edge of this cliff, I want the viewer to understand, pokes out. So I'm going to put a good amount of orange in through there and let it kind of trail off the canvas a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit lighter area at the top too, because I want that to look like it's almost like a flat ledge. So I did pick up a touch of white with my orange to give myself a little bit of a flatter area at the top of this ledge. And I don't need to color the whole thing in with this lighter color. I'm really just looking to give the viewer a little bit of information as far as the texture goes on the rock itself. And then I'll come down this side. Again, I've got mostly orange. I do have a touch of white on my brush right now, but mostly orange, just kind of allowing myself to understand where I want these brighter areas to be. Just kind of wherever you want it to pop out the most, that's where you're going to be adding these colors. Again, I will be amping up the highlight around the edge, but right now I'm just kind of, I want to give this rock some texture. So I know that this orange is really safe to do so. So I'm just really kind of giving myself some bits of highlights in through here, which is going to make the rock look like it's got some texture without painting in the whole thing. And again, as this color dries, it will get much darker. So this is really an easy way to give yourself some texture. I want to show the edge of this rock in through here too, so you can kind of imagine that to be whatever you want. You might still have your original pencil, but I painted over mine. And then if you want some of this to look like it's got some texture, just freeform, freestyle, rub that paint in so you've got some little light areas and dark areas wherever it ends up being a little bit brighter, that's going to make it look like it's popping out a little bit more. I'm going to have it kind of fading off and disappearing over on that right hand side, but this is giving me some good texture in through here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start amping up some of these little bright things. So just like I did on the body and down in through here, I'm using orange, yellow, and white to give myself the brightest highlights, and these are going to be facing the sun. So if you want them to have the bottom of this little edge is going to be facing the sun, so I can put that really, really bright. And if you do anything, you're like, wow, that was way brighter than I had thought, you can always bring back some of your black, which I might do in a little bit. And maybe I'll even put a little bit of gray, which will be black and white. So these are rocks that can have many different values to them. I'm putting lots of little bright spots along this edge, so it looks like it's catching some of that sun as it's going down. Maybe a bunch on this, because this is going to really set this piece apart from that that piece in front of it. So something like this, maybe come pretty firm down this edge over in here. And then again, I just really want it to look pretty darn natural. So I'm gonna blend it out into that rocky surface next to it. I think I'm gonna put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush right now. So I had that white, yellow, I had a little orange. Now I'm putting a little bit of black on my brush to get this to almost, I think I want this whole piece little here to be pretty bright. And then I just kind of want to give the rock some texture. So anywhere that I feel like I want something to pop out, I just make sure that I put a little bit of a light spot on it. And the light spot can be any one of these color variations. It's a rock. It can have brown spots and gray spots and white spots and black spots. So you can, you know, really have some fun with that. Maybe we'll put a little extra lightness in through here, so it looks like there's another little piece that kind of comes out. So feel free to have fun with that, and you know, let it dry if you have to, and then wait and see if it's done everything that you want it to. And if not, you just come back and add some more bits and pieces here and there. Sometimes working with a dry brush like I'm doing, like just the little remnants on your brush, that will help to give you this extra little bits of information without doing a whole heck of a lot. And then we're going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this all done, I think, yeah, I'm going to just make sure that I've got everything on here that I want to. Again, any of those colors, yellow, black, white, rust, will work. You could even throw in some of your sky color, which I don't think I'm going to do, but if you wanted to, you certainly could. And then we're going to switch to our large brush for the next step, so you can just get ready for that. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our water. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my pre-mixed like sky blue color. I'll be using black, white, yellow, and orange. So all the colors on my palette. So what I'm really looking to do is put reflections in my water and give myself some twinkles and sparkles from my sun and just make it nice and beautiful. So just a nice second layer here. So the trick to this is going to be less is more. The less paint you use on your brush, the more control you will have. We're going to be putting little reflections of the land onto the water up here, and then we'll do some down in this bottom area. We'll be putting the reflection of the sun coming down into the water, and then we'll make everything talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put very little bit of black paint on my brush, and I'm also going to put a tiny bit of water on my brush as well. And then what I do is I tap it off or rub it off on my paper towel. This is going to be my reflections of my land and my rock. And I don't want much paint on my brush at all. I want it to be kind of see-through, where I can see my colors below it. So I have a little bit of paint on my brush with a touch of water. And you can see it is see-through, which is fantastic. If you have a little bit of a peak in through here, you can bring a little peak down like that. If I have a taller area here, I can bring it down even farther in through here. If you want it a little bit darker, add a tiny bit more black onto your brush. You can always make it add more to it, but I recommend using very little bit with that touch of water to start on your brush, so that way you can have the control that will allow you to get it to look the way that you want. So I've got a little bit in through here, and you can see I can still see my watercolor underneath the paint, which is exactly what I'm going for. This one's going to be kind of higher up, so I bring it down a little bit further down my water, and I just kind of am going left to right, allowing for that reflection to happen, softening those edges. It doesn't have to be a really dramatic reflection, just something nice and representational of whatever your landscape looks like up top. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this one down here, only now I'm going to be a little bit more bold. I'm going to have a little bit more black on my brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch the profile of this. And I know that this could potentially get skewed and get bigger as it comes down the canvas. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a little bit more black on my brush. Again, I want to still see that water underneath, but I want to give the information of the profile of the cliff itself so people understand what they're looking at. So then I'm just going to bring this out towards the left like this, and then just kind of bring it off the canvas. I think I want a little bit more black to make this a little bit more dramatic and like it's a real reflection perhaps in the shadows, because this is the back side of this particular object. And you could even, in this back area behind this cliff, you could even, this is where you could pick up a little bit of your sky blue and put this in the water as well. So that will help it look like it's more in the shadows with a little bit cooler of a color. So that works to make it look a little bit more realistic as well. While I have this darker blue and a touch of black on my brush, I'm going to bring a little bit of darkness down to the bottom of my water as well. So it'll give it a little bit more atmospheric dimension, as if the water is getting darker as it's getting farther away from the sun. So you could certainly do that. If you want to darken yours a little bit, feel free to do so. Not necessary, but if yours was pretty light and you want to do that, feel free to do so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually wash and dry my brush, because I want to do my reflection from my sun, and I don't want that black on my brush. So I'm washing and drying it, and then my reflection from the sun is going to come directly below it, and it's going to get a little bit wider the further away from the sun that it goes. I'm not going to go full on white to start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my orange, a tiny bit of my yellow, and an itty bitty bit of my white. So I'm really just looking for a soft, light color, and I'm going to start right here in the middle, and I'm going to be using a left to right type of brush stroke, and I'm going to get it to go bigger and bigger as it goes farther away. I'm running out of paint, so I'm reloading my brush with that same color combination, orange, yellow, and a little bit of white. And I really just want to kind of dust it over the water. I don't need a lot of paint, really just using a light touch, giving myself this hint of the water being illuminated down the center because of the sun. And I'm just going to kind of rub it a little bit harder in the center area. That's looking pretty good. And then I want to make sure that it works with the edges. So I'm going to pick up maybe a little bit more of my orange and yellow as it comes out, and just make sure that it blends in well. I don't need it to do anything too extravagant. I just want to make sure that everything is talking together. So if you have to just kind of pull it out a little bit and just make sure that everything looks like it belongs. And then I'm going to start to add a little bit more white into the white, and maybe a little bit of yellow into that center area to illuminate the little bits in the middle here. So there's yellow and white on my brush right now. And when I do this next brightness, I'm bringing it in a little bit farther than that first pass. So this way it'll start to look brighter and brighter as it goes in towards the center and gets more concentrated along the center. And instead of rubbing it, I'm doing more of like a tap dash type of motion with my brush. And then the final little pizzazz is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint on the corner of my brush, and then I can just add these little tiny sparkles along the center area of that reflection of the sun. You could totally use your smaller brush to do these little sparkles if you wanted to, but I'm just using the corner of my large brush, and you can make it look as vibrant as you want or as subtle as you want. That's going to be your call. And then we have one little step left to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. So once you've got this done, you can put this big brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the reflection of the highlight on this rock. So I chose to do a different, separate step for this because I really wanted to maintain control, so that's why I wanted to use my small brush for it. I want to really emulate the same colors that I have in this rock in this reflection. So I've got a little bit of orange right in through here, so I'm going to use a little bit of orange and a touch of white on this little reflective edge in through here. So I just wanted to make sure that when I did this reflection, I just picked up a little bit of black too, so it looks to be the same color in through there. I just wanted to be able to get that idea that this really was the same thing. So I've got yellow and white in through here, so I'm just going to come to this spot in the reflection and make sure that I have that yellow and white represented. You don't necessarily need it to look like a mirror image, but getting these little nuances, and even if you want to add, I want to add a little here, even if you want to add a little bit on the actual rock itself, but getting these nuances really helps to sell the story of this being, you know, a realistic type of reflection. I'm going to put a little bit more orange on my brush in through here, so I've got some yellow and orange up in through there, and then I'm going to, you know, make it look like it's a little bit of ripply water, so that's where I'm going to bring my brush left to right, and then just make sure that everything looks like it belongs together. I don't like things to be looking too separate from one another, and that's looking pretty good. And then you can fiddle with it all you want, maybe a little bit more black coming down in through here. So I'm really just getting this to look like it is in fact the reflection of that rock itself. And if you want any more movement, you can add that blue and white. Maybe there's a little bit of movement in through here. So have fun with fiddling with this back area all you want with your small brush, giving you a little bit more detail to it. And then we've got one little step left that'll be with this small brush as well. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm using black paint, and I'm going to go the bottom left-hand corner on this one. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you want for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very beautiful sunset landscape, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.